A lot of people are not familiar with Varginha, and it's one of the Varginha incidents. It's commonly referred to as the Roswell of Brazil. This case happened in 1996, but in summary, you've got the town of Varginha, Brazil, in the state of Minas Gerais, which is about 5 to 6 hours north of Sao Paulo by car, Brazil.
Mm.
You have people claiming January 20th, 1996, you have people claiming to see a cigar cylinder shaped metallic object about the size or a little larger than a large school bus. And it has a gash. According to the witnesses, it had a gash in the back of it and it had a white vapor like smoke coming out, and it made no noise. It had no wings, no visible means of propulsion whatsoever, no tail, no markings on it. And it looked like it was in trouble. And I would say to the witnesses, what do you mean? Well, it looked like it was having a hard time keeping afloat. There was a gentleman by the name of Carlos de Souza. He was an ultralight pilot and a professor. And he was on his way at about 5 o'clock, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, driving from Sao Paulo to go ultralight flying with a group
Yeah.
of friends. And he saw the thing actually hit the ground. He exited the freeway. He never in 100 million years thought it was an otherworldly device. He thought it was some sort of weird experimental craft. He just went up. He figured whoever was on board needed help. So he went up into this place called the Maiolini Farm,
Mm.
comes upon a debris field about the size of a couple football fields. He said it was like light metal, metallic, very similar to what descriptions had from Jesse Marcel and the likes of Roswell, aluminum pieces. And he said that he said the first thing that it was extraordinary was the smell. When he got out of his car, he was overwhelmed with this smell of sulfur and ammonia. He said it was so strong, he grabbed his shirt and he held his shirt over his mouth and his eyes were watering. Just, my God, what is this? There was a section of the craft that was still intact, rather large. I said, did it appear to be big enough to have occupants? Absolutely. He said he didn't see any occupants. And just as he picks up a piece of this metal and he's holding it in his hands, and he said he crumpled it up, and when he let it go, it was light as a feather. It retook its shape. And then about 7 days later in the town of Varginha, you get these really credible reports of a high level of military activity, roadblocks, and reports from civilians and military as well. You're getting reports of activity in and around the town of Varginha, of reports of these strange creatures.
Yeah.
And the three most credible and the one that broadcast across the world, quite honestly, were these three women, ages 14, 16, and 21. There were two sisters. It was Liliani and Valkyria, and Katya, who was a 21-year-old friend of the two sisters. And they were just walking home, taking a shortcut in the town of Varginha through a little, like a field with a cinder block wall. They're going through this field, and they said they saw some graffiti on the cinder block wall. And what caught their eye was the graffiti. And then they saw what looked like maybe a statue or something frozen, kind of crouching, kneeling. And they're looking as they got closer and closer, and they got about 8 to 10 feet away. And they realized this thing was nothing they'd ever seen before, was some sort of creature. And one of the girls yelled, and the creature in this slouched position, it was down with his hands, wall like this. And the creature looked at the girls right in the eyes. The two sisters, Liliani grabs her younger sister, Valkyria, who was 14, by the hand, rips her out of there, and they're running, terrified of this thing. And they realize Katya, the 21-year-old, is frozen in her tracks, locked eyes on this thing from, very close. I mean, it was broad daylight, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. One of the girls and runs back to grab Katya, grabs her by the hand and yanks her out of there. I said to Katya, during that moment of contact, when you locked eyes on this creature, was there any level of communication? Did you feel anything? Did it communicate anything? She said, yes, help me, I'm scared. So ultimately, the beings were captured. The debris was taken to a place called Campinas, and apparently that's where the bodies and debris were. And then then we got news from the Brazilian military that the Americans came in and kind of took over operations and flew at least the bodies and possibly some of the recovered debris back to the United States. That's it, kind of in a nutshell.